Hello and welcome to Through the Mist with me, your host Owen. This is Avoid and Mistake podcast. We look at the law and try to understand how it all works. In this episode, we're going to be looking at Magicians and Magic. Magicians and Magic, Magic and Magicians, Magicians and Magic, Magic and Magicians. Welcome back to the Mist Busters are here. We are together. Let's go. Let's go. Oh. Hey, everybody. Hi. How we all doing? We're happy, we're chill, we're vibing. We are misting, we are busting, we are through the mist. Yeah, welcome. Hello. Hi. Cheerios. How's your day been? Is it going well? Are you looking forward to it? Good morning, good evening, and good night. Like the class, except good afternoon. I miss good afternoon. Why are there 4 parts of the day, you know? There's morning, there's afternoon, there's evening, and there's night. But why is there no evening equivalent in the morning? No one would say, like, good dawn. They would just say good morning, you know? But we have this evening equivalent. Why don't we have, like, a... You know? It's just weird, isn't it? Isn't it? Hey. Anyway. Penny for your thoughts? So I had a big episode last episode. And what also has been happening is we've got... It seems like someone has been binging the podcast. Because we got a ton of Spotify comments from a lovely listener named Penelope. Hello, Penelope. Welcome to the Mistbusters. And I'm just going to run through some of them. So, Penelope. Last episode, they just said, thank you for organising such madness. And it was. I did kind of go mad during that. So that's good. And the madness isn't quite over yet because someone asked me a question that broke me. So we'll get to that shortly. We also have some comments from Penelope from episode 9, Hunters of Artemis, with the Greek/Roman thing as the hunters, which I personally still haven't got over. What if there were 2 groups of hunters, an Artemis and a Diana one? They would probably still run into each other, though. Yeah, there's the issue. Like, I might need to go back and understand what the Romans believe about the Hunters of Artemis, because they could just be an Artemis thing. You know, they could just be an Artemis thing, and it's never a Hunters of Diana. It's only the Hunters of Artemis. They only know Artemis. But then it's just, I still don't know how that would all work. I'm chewing. I should have waited till I finished my pineapple chunk before I started recording. But, you know, if you've got a hard-boiled sweet in my mouth, what are you going to do? Not record an episode? No, that would be silly. Anyway, the whole Artemis and Diana thing with the hunters still eludes me to how that would work. I think the best I've just come up with is the fact that you would only have a Hunters of Artemis and Diana didn't have an equivalent set of hunters or never came to the hunters as Diana. Except I think Trials of Apollo breaks that. Anyway, Penelope has also given a comment on episode 28. Who's your daddy? What if, because Sally knows that Poseidon is a god, she gets him to make her pregnancy shorter so she doesn't have to wait for the whole 9, 12, 15 months of it? Which is also a great idea, to be fair, that Poseidon just helped speed up the development of the baby to make sure it was born while he could still protect it. However, there's something about the seahorse theory that is just so giggles that I can't drop it, you know? Like, I think your theory is so valid. However, on Through the Mist going forward, that just purely for the giggles, purely for the lols, we are gonna go the seahorse theory, just because it is so funny. No other reason. To be honest, yours is probably a better option. But seahorses are kings. And finally, episode 5, they're on gnomes. They have left. What about travelling exhibits? Do gnomes travel with them? Also, don't know if this was just me, but I assume there was one for each longitude, but that probably wouldn't work. Yeah, so I had a backlog look at this. And yeah, I think the same, when I started researching, this was the first place I was like, oh, there's just one for each longitude, 360, that makes sense. But the more you look into it and the more you look at the ones we know about, it doesn't make sense. So it's a bit it doesn't flow right. So then I ended up linking it to places near a mass of Egyptian artifacts because that made sense. And it kind of followed a pattern like London, Brooklyn, Egypt. I can't remember where the other ones were. And then there's some odd ones like the North Korea one and the Antarctica one where there's no objects there, but they're just covering the land now. Like that's what they're doing. So yeah. And a bit about travelling exhibits. I don't know. That's probably a magician on guard, you know. And I'd probably go to a museum near a gnome anyway. So then that gnome will just keep an eye on that exhibit while it's there. And then probably just some magician comes along on guard as well. But thank you, Penelope, for joining the Mythbusters. Joining the crew. Welcome. Hope you enjoyed your little blast through the past of your little adventure through the mist. I hope it was good, clearly, because you made it all the way to the most recent episode. So thank you for that. And thank you for your comments. They were really interesting. Good thought exercises anyway. Anyway, talking about thought exercises and questions, I put a question out, as I usually do. It was a special episode last time, 1 year anniversary episode, but still got to pump the question out. Still continuing this wonderful game we have. And the question, quite simply, that was on the Instagrams at @through_mist was, what is your favourite living thing in the Voidverse? And we got two wonderful answers. I'll do the simple one first from @Bluey5852. They put Mrs. O'Leary. And yeah, great creature. And I didn't really specify this out. I think I did. I might have said this in the last episode. I can't remember. But I've added it. I've added it to the table. The table of the tree. I've added it to the tree. And a hellhound, because Miss O'Leary is a hellhound, sits under mythical, physical, monsters, group, continuous, hellhound. Boom. Bossed it, easy, slotted it in. Wonderful. However, we do have a comment from Aragon and back again. Aragon? I always say Aragon. I'm terrible at it. I'm terrible. My brain just defaults to Aragon, even though it is Aragon. I'm back again. And it says, wait, does Festus count? And that one, I read that comment and I threw my phone on the table. I was like, oh, does Festus count? Damn it! And in this case, we're talking about automatons. And automatons in general don't count. They are not living things. I think we would mostly all agree on that. And you got special cases like Daedalus who transfers his soul. So the automaton isn't a living thing. He's more of a ghost at that point. So like where you would put late stage Daedalus is another question that I didn't want to go into, so I didn't. But you could probably chuck him on the spiritual side and some form of ghost. But then Festus is weird because there's the pre-Piper Festus and there's the post-Piper Festus. And pre-Piper Festus is definitely just an automaton, which I'm hard saying are not a living thing. But post-Piper Festus is more fun if you say yes, they're a living thing. But where do they sit? I don't know. Because they're not a monster. Because they don't dust. They're not immortal. Are they an immortal? No, I don't. It's hard to say. So, and their base is automaton, which is not a living thing, in my humble opinion. Feel free to argue. So I want to say yes, because it's more fun, but I think I want to, everything in my gut is telling me no. No, Festus does not count, but I really want them to count. I really, really want them to count. But my gut's telling me no, they don't count. So if you can place Festus post Piper in my tree, please tell me how to fit Festus in, and I will happily take it. But I personally want to say no. No Festus. It does not count. And that is really sad, and I'm sorry for bumming you all out. Anyway, episode time. Well, that was episode. This is the part of the episode where you all come. So we've got two different things we're going to look at today, because they've been in my list for a while. Or hang on. I'm just finishing off the pineapple chunk. Give me a sec. I'm cleaning the teeth. So, we've got two things we're going to look at. The first one is what makes a magician a magician. These two things have been living in my notes for a while, and they just have never felt big enough to take on one episode on their own. So we're combining them together, putting these two together. And the first question is, what makes a magician a magician? And this might seem like an odd question to ask, but it felt important to me as almost a way of like, okay, so why isn't everyone just wandering around the world doing magic? You know? Why are there still mortals like me in the world of the Rhydonverse? Why aren't they all magicians? Why isn't magic everywhere? You know? That was it. Just that answering that question felt important and felt useful and good. So, best place to look at these are the Egyptians. So we're going to focusing a lot on the Egyptians today because they are the main magicians. They are all magicians. That side of the magic system works off magicians. So yes, you've got Blood of the Pharaohs, which has been pointed out is a bit weird recently on other podcasts because a lot of people are covering this at the moment. It's been a bit weird. And like especially if you consider how old Egypt is and exponential growth margins and all that. Also like the whole why Blood of the Pharaohs makes you special is all weird. But however, I've got an idea, which is that basically because they were pharaohs, they hosted gods so much that something's changed in them chemically, which makes it easier and more compatible to host other gods in the future generations, you know? Just a fun little Blood of the Pharaohs just makes you better because your ancestors did it before, which means that they did it a lot. It just means you're a bit better at hosting a god these days. And then what gets tricky is you've got like Carter and Sadie who at a young age show signs that they can do magic. It's not a learnt skill, it's an inherited skill as well. It's both an inherited and a learnt skill, so it's weird. Like the cake incident for Carter and Sadie is the big one. But like it's weird that they can do this around, like they have this ability, this innate ability, but you also can learn it because you also get outsiders like Jean-Francis Champollion who come in and become and learn it. And then if we're taking magicians as a whole, you've also got Hearthstone and into this like set of an outsider who's learning magic. Because Hearthstone is, yes, an elf who is from the mystical world. If we're looking at the ways of the Rhydonverse, just don't tell them that they are not real and brought about by the collective human consciousness. Don't tell them that. But they are learning magic and they are not inherently able to use magic. So why is that? And then I thought about this for a while and I came up with this whole the mist versus magicians thing. So we know the mist exists throughout the universe. It's got different names. It's the glimmer in Norse and something else in the Egyptians, but it exists. The mist exists. It hides the identity of the magic world from people. And it plays on all the different types of magic. It is kind of, all the magic within this universe is the same. It's just how it's manipulated and how it's used is different and how it's thought about is different. But like this base magic everywhere. And the mist keeps these hidden magical elements both from each other and from mortals. But we also know the magicians can see through the mist, which in turn makes them susceptible to the magic world in the first place. So all magicians of clear sight, all of them. None of them that you have to be. So there we have it. We have solved why not everyone is a magician, because not everyone can see through the mist. It's a random thing that happens, and they can have different power levels of seeing through the mist and different ways of seeing through the mist. But if you can see through the mist, you have the ability to become a magician. The only prerequisite to becoming a magician is being able to see through the mist. You have to be able to understand that there is magic in the world before you can learn how to manipulate it. And being able to see through the mist immediately goes, I know how to see through the world. So Zaya is a magician because they grew up surrounded by the magical world. So, like, there's this thing in the books where they say a child's mind is less rooted, less grounded, and able to see through the mist more. As a young child, you can just happen to see through the mist. But as you get older, either this never goes away, or the mist effects become stronger and stronger and stronger on you. Or it just never affects you at all, ever. And Zia, we don't know if they were clear-sighted when they were a child, but at the very least, when they got brought into the House of Life as a child, they would have this mist manipulation that would have occurred if they were in the real world and make them not see through it, just never got the chance because they were physically surrounded by magic. They suddenly knew magic was existing in the world and they couldn't unsee it. And then Jean-Francis Champollion, at minimum, like, had their eyes opened when they would decipher the Rosetta Stone. You could say, like how in Magnus Chase, is it Amir? Amir Magnus Chase. Yes! Amir gets his eyes open when he sees the Rainbow Bridge. He probably would have gone mad if Magnus hadn't healed him, but that's not the point. The point is, either Jean-Francis could always see through the mist, and when they deciphered the Rosetta Stone, magic happened, or when they deciphered the Rosetta Stone, they became able to see through the mist. Hearthstone is born of the magical world. They know of the magical world. They can't not be able to see through the mist because they are part of the mist. But again, don't tell them I said that. If that's the case, then that's just how that works, isn't it? It's just their magic. They can see through the mist. If they can see through the mist, they can learn to manipulate the mist. And that just came into my head as well. Like, you got Thalia learning the snappy thing and like learning how to manipulate the mist, which is, yes, magic is more than that. There are different ways to manipulate it. Thalia is doing it in a very literal sense of manipulating the mist, and so is Hazel to an extent, being much more literal in the way that she's manipulating the mist. But that's because of how the Greco-Roman world understands the magic. But on the Egyptian side, you've got a much more fluid magic system. But they're still manipulating the mist, which is just going to be my catch-all for the magic. Or the case of this, more likely pulling the Duat out into the real world, the Dawns into the real world. And then the Carter and Sadie incident, I'm going to put down to their parents being practicing magicians, so that they were able to do the magic, but the magic was a bit more potent than it was a bit more of they were just practicing magicians so that when, the only way that makes sense to me to make the inherited magic make sense is one of the parents has got to be a practicing magician for the child to inherit the magic, because that's how magic works, right? And the only reason magicians have extended lives is magic. Again, we don't need to explain that further. That's just magic, Carter and Sadie and I'm really happy with that. I was like, yes, Owen, that is exactly why this all happens. And great. Woo! We'll move on. So I've got something to confess now. Didn't actually finish the research for this episode. I started the research for this other question I have, but I never finished it. And that question is, how do spells differ from written text? Again, like I said, I've had this thought for a while. But if you write spells with the same characters and the same language that you speak, how does it know whether you're casting a spell or just having normal conversations? And this is especially true when we see spells written in hieroglyphs or ancient Greek, kind of also using runes, but runes and the way the magic works in runes is a bit more like how the golden compass works than the others. If you understand that, the golden compass it has an image, and that image means multiple different things depending on context and other things, and it's a bit like that with the runes, where the rune means a lot of different things. But ancient Greek and hieroglyphs probably have that about them because they're more pictorial, but I don't think ancient Greek had that as such. It's much more just how modern English sees before. So then I was like, okay, the tongue thing, the thing that they write on the tongue, is that, how do we see this? How does that work? Like I said, I haven't finished, so I'm researching now. Give me a second. So I thought the best place to look would be in Demigod and Magicians, when Annabeth and Sadie meet each other, because I'm pretty sure Annabeth does magic. I can't remember. Because you've also got, like, in Egyptians, you've got the parchment, which definitely happens in the third book. It definitely happens in the third book, where Annabeth writes Greek on the thing. So there's the goo that makes them see through the mist, or see the duat. So, like, why? What makes magic magic, you know? And it's a really deep question. Actually really hard to answer. I don't know why I did this to myself. Like, as I was thinking about this, the more I've been thinking and going, and there's a bad one. I don't know. I'm trying to read this while talking. It's hard and doesn't make sense how... Yeah, Annabeth never speaks magic. Because Annabeth doesn't know how to speak magic. But she writes magic, doesn't she? She writes magic. Pretty sure. Okay. We're combining things now. They're combining different ways. Yeah, she writes Greek on the thing. So what? I guess it's intent, which I really didn't want to be the answer. I think that's the only answer I can think of. I think this is. It's hard to think about, isn't it? Like, what? Why? Oh, why, Delilah? How did... it's... Like, there's the tongue thing, which they do. There's the papyrus, and they write down the spells, and they can store the spells for later. But when Percy and Annabeth write in ancient Greek, that wouldn't happen. But it only happens when they put it on the papyrus, and then it happens. So... And, like, mist manipulation is a very different form of magic. Like, it's not spells. It's manipulation. It's feeling. You're not saying do thing and then the thing happens. You're feeling the thing and then the thing happens. It's very different like that, isn't it? Intent. I think that I said I hadn't finished the research. I just needed to scan that book, really. But I think that is the answer. I think it is intent. Which sucks, really. And I don't... Because you got to think about this. Yes, they use hieroglyphs now, but that wasn't used... And that isn't used anymore. So clearly it's the hieroglyphs that make it magic. No! You silly baboon. The hieroglyphs can't make it magic because back in the day when the House of Life was the thing, it was the hieroglyphs, were used everywhere. They were written language. So you can't then turn just a bog standard written language. Like, why aren't the runes on the side of different things magical? And it might genuinely be because they say the words and then the runes are written in the sky. The runes, I keep on saying runes. They say the word and the hieroglyphs are written in the sky, but they write the hieroglyphs on a very specific bit of paper. And it might just be that, is what you write them on, rather than the fact that they are written. I like that. Yeah, we're going to go with that. It's all about what you write it on. What you write it on, not what is written. So I just need to add that to my notes for when I inevitably have to think about this in the future and go, what was the answer? It's what you write it on, not what it's written. And that is the answer. That is what differs spells from written text. This is going to be an odd bit to edit as well, isn't it? Because I just paused a lot in that. That's fine. We'll work something out, won't we? We'll have fun. Thank you for indulging this theory. If you have any comments on this theory or theories you only want me to discuss, you can email them through to 3.t.myth@gmail.com. Or you can follow us on the Instagrams and send us a DM and comment over there @who_myth. Make sure to follow the podcast, like, subscribe to the podcast, whatever you have to do to get the podcast out there. I've been Owen, and come back next time. And we'll see you.